One, I think we can start. All right. Welcome to another week in Collab Lab. Yeah, how was your week? Did, how are the stories and all that? Good.
There we good.
All right. All right. So let's kick it off with demos then. Who wants to go first?
I can go first.
All right.
Go ahead and share my screen. Hold on. Make sure I'm sharing the right desktop. Okay. All right. Can you guys see my VS Code?
Yep.
Okay. So Ismari and I were tasked with being able to join an existing list. And one of the things we had to do is we had to query the data from Firebase. And this was kind of a tricky one. And I want to send a shout out to Ismari because she did an awesome job figuring out here a little snippet of data. We were having some confusion with get docs and get doc, and the data that we were receiving back, we were getting back data regardless of. And it turns out one was querying the collection and the other one just individual documents. And so it was a good thing to, finally distinguish. And then she found this nifty little bit of code, which is query snapshot.empty. It's basically a property that we would get whenever we make the request. So we have here a reference, list collection reference, which references the database. And then once it makes the request, it basically says, okay, this snapshot has a property that says whether it's empty or not. It has a Boolean on there. And if it's empty, there's nothing in there, obviously. Otherwise, it would return the data with the list ID. And so once we get that, on the other side, we created a little miniature form that would handle the user input, right? So it uses that function that we created and what the user inputted, the list ID. And so it saves that to the local storage and then checks with our check if list exists function. If the user hasn't entered anything at all, it is going to return and tell them, there's nothing in there, please enter a token. And Alejandro gave us a tip to add a return there, which was really nice because it helped us create a stop instead of having to continue on with the rest of the function. And then if the list does exist, it will navigate them to the list page. And if it's invalid, it's just going to tell them to please enter a valid token, and it'll clear the token in that one particular use case scenario. Again, here we used labels in order to be able to make it accessible. So we should be able to click on it and you should see, click on the label and it should go into the input directly. So this is what it looked like before. And then after, you can see our little form. I'll go ahead, see if I click here, it goes into the enter. It says please enter a token. We do random or, I don't know, joke. Please enter a valid token. And then I think Novosoon Snag is one. It'll take us to our existing list. That's pretty much it. Any questions? Nope.
I have one.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm mostly curious, what was the most difficult part of this?
I would say querying the data. Ishmari did a lot on the leg up there, gave us a leg up with finding that data from Firebase, but we were kind of having a hard time, like I said, distinguishing between the collection and docs. And it was really something that required some digging. And it was kudos to her for finding that query snapshot with the empty property. Really got us
really
going.
difficult because what we encountered was if we returned a particular, let's say a document snapshot, let's say I put in a token that didn't exist in the database, it would still return a snapshot, but a snapshot of no data inside. So because it still was returning a snapshot, it was still taking the user to the list page. And we were just obviously we don't want that functionality. finally, after like I read through like so much documentation about like the dot empty for snapshots, I was like, okay, let's try this. And finally I was like, oh, okay, cool, it's working now. So it took a long time for me to like come to that realization, but once we added that bit of code, then I was just happy that we were able to figure it out.
It was really random too, because it would take you to that list page, and then if you added an item, it would actually create a token for you. So it was a tricky thing to troubleshoot.
Like we typed in random, we added an item to that list, and then we like checked back on Firebase and like we saw random in like our
Yeah.
database, and I was like, how did it do that?
Really
So,
random.
yeah,
It was a fitting phrase for it.
great.
All right. Thank
I
you
have
very
another
much.
question.
Oh,
If the,
go ahead.
I saw you when you type in the token, you have like space in between. What happens if there's no space or if there's a dash? I'm just curious.
Oh, well, we can test that out. It's actually not something we tested. Or did you, Ismari? I didn't test it. Let's see. Hold on. Let's clear this. Refresh it. No, it doesn't accept it. So I don't know if that was a use case we should have accounted for or not.
What
Is
if
that
like you
something?
just put like a space, like just like space nothing?
Oh. Oh, hold on. Let's refresh it and see.
Okay.
Still tells you. It gives it as if you had entered something. So it accepts it as a character because that's the message it gives if it's an invalid token. So
I guess if it doesn't like absolutely match whatever the name of the token is in the database, then it just will automatically say it's like
reject it.
invalid.
Should we have accounted for like spacing and kind of said like if it's the correct phrase, but without the spacing? Accept it or no?
I think we have another task coming up, like sanitize the input. I'm not sure if it's a token or something. I don't recall. But I think it's always a good practice to think about edge cases. Again, we have like 2 weeks at the end to refactor things. So maybe,
Also,
yeah.
I don't know if it will take, no, it won't take the uppercasing. So that's a good thing to think about for the future too, if it's supposed to take the uppercasing. Which
I think
in retrospect, it should have jogged whenever I seen the 2 lowercase on the other teams, but it didn't.
I think that it makes sense that it doesn't find the no soon snag. I think if it doesn't have spaces, I think it's fine. I mean, it is a completely different string, so yeah, we're good. No worries. Yeah.
Thank
you. All right. Anything else? Any question about this demo? All right. I think we're good. So then, next group, go ahead. The floor is yours.
You don't do Tila?
I can share if you want, Satoshi.
Yeah, can you go ahead?
Okay. Yes. Okay, you should be able to see my screen with our shopping list browser. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so this week we added the filter list functionality. So right now, if I move our heads out of the way, I have a token in here, so we're automatically on this last list page that I was working in. So we did filtering it should grab, it's like a live filter with every key that you input, and it will grab if any part of the list item string matches what you typed in. So this milk example, like even though it's oat milk on the second item, it still picks it up because it's still included. And we did do the convert everything to lowercase for the comparison to make sure that casing doesn't kind of change what's going to show. Oops, if I do it all uppercase, it happens the same way. This is also all tabbable. So if I look for butter, oops, and I can hit the X. If I hit enter there, it clears the whole thing, which would be the same as if I actually clicked it. And then if you go in and add another thing, what do I not have on there? Juice. Juice was added. It immediately shows up and it's immediately able to be filtered again. Yeah. So if we look at the code really quick, I think all our changes this week were on the list JSX file. So we added a search input state object or state property. So as soon as the user types into our little search input here, it's automatically added to state to keep our data and our user interface in sync. And when this set search input is updated in this on change. So that's where as soon as anyone types it in, it's going to update that search input. In our whole form here, it's pretty simple, minimal form. We have the label, then we have our actual text input, and then we have the button for clearing it out, which thanks for that call out that our button needed a type, even if it was just this generic button. That was new information to me, so we didn't have it default to be type submit. So that was pretty cool. Let's see, what else do we have in here? So the actual search works by within this list items to display function. So we originally wrote this out kind of in a few separate functions, and then we got it all working and we went back and refactored it to be a little cleaner. Satoshi saw a really good way to refactor it and kind of combine a few different things into one easy to read function here. So this was the end product. But so before this week's task, we had already had list items to display this map function here, but we updated it to, while we're mapping over that array of data that's coming back from the Firestore, we're just doing the search anytime it's being rendered. So based on our search input, we're checking, is the item, this current item in our list, does it include that search input? If it does, down here on the return row, if it does, we will create that list item component to actually display it. If it's not included in the search, we just return null and it goes on to the next element in the array to check. So that ended up being kind of a nice clean way to do that. And then we have our reset display list function, which is just to clear out that input when you hit the X button. Pretty clear there. And then as I was going through and making these last suggestion changes from everyone's review this week, I noticed that there was a bug where if I was like typing something in here and I hit enter at this point, the whole page would refresh and it would give me back my whole list again. It's not doing it now because I fixed it, but that fix came from adding this handle key down, which happens within our input again here, just on every key down. It's checking if the key that was clicked was the return. If it was the return button, we want to prevent that default so we can just keep doing kind of the live search way that we're used to seeing it. So that was kind of our last addition there. And yeah, I think that's about it. Unless Satoshi, you have anything to add or any questions?
No, I don't have anything to add here. Thanks for the presentation. Great.
Yeah, good job catching that bug and fixing it.
But I have one question about Firebase. Like I think I sent the image. Can I share my screen?
Yes.
This one. On the filter function, item name, and I need to put a question mark to avoid the error, because some object doesn't have name and then it has only the ID. And yeah, actually, when I create a new shopping list, it seems like the Firebase creating the one object with ID. Is this a default behavior of the Firebase? Like you can see from the image, this is a new list, new created list, and then one object is only have ID. And it's created automatically.
Is that from when we had that error before, Satoshi, where when we were accidentally submitting on KeyPress originally? Do you remember, like, second week when you and I were working together and we were hitting enter and it was automatically submitting like an empty one? I wonder if it would assign an ID, but an empty like slot for the name.
I'm not sure because I didn't touch the submit form here. When I
Okay.
create the shopping list
Okay.
and then move to list page, and I think I
That's a brand new
console.
list then.
Yeah, it's brand new
Okay.
list.
Never mind.
When I test it with my test list, it doesn't have this object on has having the ID only. That's why I didn't need to put the item name question. But once I tried with newly created list, it has the object with only ID. That's why I added the question here.
I think
And
that came from when Ismari and I last week, our task of saving the list token to the Firebase as soon as it's created. Which doing that, we learned that you can't save an empty collection to Firebase. There has to be at least one document within it. That's just like a Firebase rule or a Firestore rule, excuse me. So the way we got around that was in order to save that token to the Firestore, we created essentially one blank document that gets automatically added to enable that save to the Firestore. So it's like the first element in every list or every array will be that empty document. And then as soon as a user adds any items, that becomes, index 1 in that same array. And from there on out, it's actual items with item names, but index 0 will always be that kind of placeholder blank.
Is that something that we should like remove once we have it? Like have an if statement that removes the empty object once you put in a new one, or just curious? I have no clue.
Well, I think the way it is right now, and I can't find exactly where this code is, but the way it is right now, since that first document is just blank, like it doesn't actually render anything to the screen for that. So it's almost like if we removed it, it's going to look the exact same to the user as it does now. So we could, to be super clean with our database, but the user won't kind of see it in either way.
I don't have an answer for that. I would have to dig more into Firebase, to understand this better, give a better answer. So, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I was doing some research too. It does say Firebase doesn't automatically delete empty collections. Maybe that's where this issue comes in. But
yeah, if we have bad data, we can just delete it. It would be good. I think we can follow up on Slack. Yeah, so we have the learning module today, and we have to go through issues, and I think we're just on time. So if that's okay, we can look forward and follow up in Slack again. Sounds good? All right.
Awesome. So I'm going to share my screen here. Going to go into the module for today. Whoever's sharing, I'm kicking you off. Cool. Let's see if this lets me. There we go. Cool. And I'm on a single screen, so I can't see the chat. So definitely interrupt me if you do have questions. I'm going to save some time at the end for conversation and question as well. So both are good for me. Both are great. So today we're going to chat about pair programming. A lot of you have already had the opportunity to do this, but this is going to be a great refresher, and hopefully we have some good conversation about it. There we go. So pair programming is really about a mindset and an attitude. Sometimes I know, like, as someone who's a little more senior on the team, it can be tempting for me to think to myself, you know, oh, this will be quicker if I just did it by myself. But one thing that I've found is when folks kind of go off in their own corner and don't really talk to anyone, and then you just have a PR up, there's not that shared knowledge of how things work. So sometimes it can feel like you're going a little slower to begin with, but long term, it's a long game. And it's really great for people to pair program, in my opinion. And just some things to think about with the mindset here. Really try to embrace that beginner's mind, no matter, you know, your experience level with that part of the code base or anything like that. Definitely make sure that you embrace doubt and possibility. If you're not sure if something's going to work, that would be a great time to experiment and just try it out. We have version control for a reason, so make sure you commit your stuff that you have that's good, and then you can always revert back if the experiment that you tried with your pairing partner doesn't work. And something else that's kind of a little bit of a misnomer with pair programming is it's really not about teaching or mentorship. That can happen as a nice side effect that I personally really love. But when you're day-to-day, you know, in your job, it's really about, you know, two heads are better than one. Let's combine forces and get this task done. And then on the next page, we're going to chat a little bit more about the two roles, but just regarding the mindset, if you're the driver, make sure that you seek agreement before proceeding. Don't just start typing code without talking about it. And then on the other end, if you're the navigator, make sure that you're being collaborative, that you're not just bossing the driver around. So let's chat a little bit about the two roles here. We've got the driver. The driver is going to be a little more thinking low level about the code because they're the person that's at the keyboard that's actually writing the code. So naturally, if you're the driver, you're going to be thinking more about how do I spell this? How do I write a function in this language I've never used before? Does this need a semicolon? Things like that. And also, as the driver, I think it's really important. Sometimes it's tempting to just get in the code and just be typing, but it's also really important that you're verbalizing as you're going. And then the other role here is going to be the navigator. And the navigator's a little more high-level thinking because they aren't in the code writing the code. They're going to be the person that's offering guidance to the person that's writing the code. So like an example activity that they might be doing beyond straight guiding would be, I would say the navigator is usually the person that is looking up documentation if the two of you need to reference something most of the time, from my experience at least. So pairing remotely can be fun. I've done both remotely and in person. More recently, I work at a 100% remote company, so we don't have a choice. We're always pairing remotely. Same with your current situation with Collab Lab. So the basic overview of the flow of how this looks is two developers will hop on a video call. You'll talk about who you want to be the driver, who you want to be the navigator. The driver will then share their screen and they will code while the navigator is guiding them with feedback, questions, conversation. And then when you're done, or when you're like at a good stopping point, the driver pushes the code up to the remote repo, and then the navigator can pull the code down on their computer. And then I always think it's a good plan to swap roles, because they are two different ways of thinking about coding, two different ways of communicating. And I think it's important that people take turns and try out both. You might find yourself a little more partial to one or the other. I think that's only natural, but yeah, I always try to, personally, I always kind of try to force myself out of my comfort zone and just try both, because it makes you overall a better communicator. And even beyond code, this can really just generally help you out in life as you communicate with other humans. And I think tooling wise, I usually kind of go super minimum. I mostly just, my company, we use Slack huddles a lot. So when I'm pairing with someone, we just do it through the Slack huddle. We don't use anything fancy, but would love to hear conversation about what some of you all use and prefer. And then, yeah, this last slide is mostly just for conversation, questions, thoughts. If anyone has any tips or anything to add, the floor is yours. You have a chat question? Alejandro. Yeah, same with Slack huddle. Yeah, some of those new ones do look cool, but I haven't had the chance to try them yet.
We used Tuple this week, which Tila had suggested, and that was really awesome, actually. I really enjoyed it. I think Ismari did too. I won't speak for her.
I really liked it.
It was really fun, actually. The UI is super clean. And so it doesn't have like a bunch of like overlay UI elements, and there wasn't any lag really. We didn't have any issues with it not syncing correctly. The only thing I'm bummed out about is it is a paid service, so the 2-week trial will be ending soon. But it was nice. We've used Slack huddles too, and they work nicely, but it was nice to be able to at least have that cursor, over the code and being able to click on things. So it was nice.
That's awesome. I'm glad you guys enjoyed using that. I didn't realize it was paid. I got it through my boot camp. They signed us up. So I guess I'm just on their subscription now, but that's good to know.
I think it's not that bad. It's like 20 or something like that. Do you remember, Ismari? If it was like $20 a month?
I can't remember.
I don't know, but it's pretty cool tool. I liked it.
I had a question I wanted to ask all you mentors. How often in your experience have you actually pair programmed on the job? How does this usually show up for you? Kind of in what situations? Yeah, just curious what your experience has been with that in the professional setting, after boot camp life. I've heard different things from other people. Some people, they never pair programs. Sometimes they do it all the time. So just curious.
Yeah, it can really vary. My current place, most of the time, it's usually we're pairing to work through bugs, or someone is stuck on something. Sometimes I'm that someone. But yeah, actually I did work at a startup once where we would have like our weekly engineering, like here's what our priorities are meeting. And part of that was the manager had like a randomizer that would pair people up, and he would say, like, no pressure, like if you're too busy or if you don't want to do it, like you don't have to, but here's suggested pairings for the week. And I really like that because, yeah, actually everyone on the team, like people actually did it. And it was cool because for me being more back end, like if I got paired with the front end person, like we'd be working on some React stuff. And it was nice to kind of get a more holistic view of the system and kind of feel like an idiot, but like an idiot in a like more of a safe space because you're pairing and learning from each other.
For me, it's been, I think, similar to Daniel's. Yeah, I guess I'm really like proactive, maybe. It's like if I'm stuck, like I'm going to make some noise. And it's like, I need help. I need someone to pair with. I don't know. Let's say I've spent half an hour on this and I'm blocked. I need help. So can someone help me out? And we just do pair programming. So it is not like, for me, it hasn't been like, oh, we are going to have a pair programming session. I'm going to drive. It is not like, at least for me, it is not like that. It's more like, let me share what I'm doing. Tell me what is wrong, or what do you think that we should try? And in those scenarios, maybe like the person with the problem is the one that shares the screen most of the time. I guess 90 something percent. It is. Yeah, I don't think I remember that the person that I'm pairing with shares their screen, to show me like, hey, I would do it this way or that way. So, but that happens a lot. That's really frequent. I guess at least once a week. Yeah, that makes sense. Or you are the one that gets, like they ask you for help. So you are in either like driving or navigating. I think that's the name. At least once a week. So that's pretty common. And as Ismail said, that is a really good opportunity to get to know your team better. So it's not just work, you just chat and it's fun. So yeah.
Cool. Yeah, that all makes sense. I like that, Danielle, from one of your previous bosses that you said that they had that randomizer. It kind of takes out the like, oh, I don't want to like bother someone and like, that nervousness makes it easy for everyone. That's cool. Thanks.
Yeah, I definitely heard that happens a lot especially for new hires. Managers helping them to really get to know each other. So that's a great way to really motivate people to meet people. Sometimes it's hard, right? Like, oh, should I reach out to them? Or, yeah.
One thing about that. The great thing about being the new person is that no one is going to tell you no. Because it's like, he's the new guy, so I'm going to help him. And I think like you can use that in your favor, like a lot. So use it as much as you can. Yeah.
Now, I'm curious about your experience pair programming. The four of you, really, how was it? How has it been? Is it getting better?
I think it's
good.
definitely, oh, go ahead.
Oh,
Satoshi, go ahead.
yeah, it's a good experience. I never done the pair programming before, so it's a totally different experience than doing a solo project on my own. And also, I feel everyone do on their style, so I learn a lot, especially like my teammates care for like accessibility and readability more than me, so it's affect my coding style. I feel when I doing some project on my own, I care more about accessibility and readability.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I think it's been going better and better and better and better. It's been a really fun experience because it's, again, for me, it's been the same as Satoshi. I did not have any experience peer programming, not with branches and all of these things and working on tickets together and in issues. And so it's been really awesome getting through the first few kinks and learning how to navigate together. And it is unique. Like each one of the times that we've pair programmed, it's been a different experience. And I think it will probably continue to be a different experience because we're all learning things every single week. At least I feel that I am. So it's been really neat. I've appreciated it a lot.
Yeah, I'd echo kind of what these guys have said so far. It's gone really smooth. Everyone's been very like open to explaining their idea, hearing other ideas, kind of like finding some middle ground, collaborating that way, which has been cool. And one of the things that I love most about pair programming is seeing kind of that how other people's brains work and process the same thing that I would do differently. I think it's a great learning experience.
I would say the same thing you said, Tila. Exactly.
I was going to say one other thing too, actually. When I was fresh out of code school, I went to this meetup that was part of the Global Day of Code Retreat, which I believe Code Retreat is like November 2nd or something. And it was a really nice workshop. If there's one in your town, definitely go. Essentially how it works is like everyone comes. Some people are like just designers, like don't even know how to code, and they pair you up and have you go through this like really common question, common in programming, I'll link to it, called Conway's Game of Life, like about cells and how they reproduce. And you pair with someone for 45 minutes. And then after 45 minutes, you have to delete your code and then they put you with someone else. And through that, I was just talking to the facilitator, and her company wasn't hiring at the time, but we connected on LinkedIn, and then like 6 months later, I saw her company was hiring, and I was like, hey, remember me? And yeah, that's the long story short about how I got my job. So pair programming is really great. Yeah, I'll link to the Conway's Game of Life. I think I got asked this in a interview once too, even. It's one of those questions that's like really, it can get really complicated. I think people usually ask it just because they kind of want to see how you think. But yeah, it's called Code Retreat is what I was talking about. Yeah, I think sometimes they have random ones throughout. I think it's a worldwide thing, but
That's pretty awesome. You put code and retreat together. I would never thought to think about them all together.
and like I was so scared to go because I was like, I just graduated from code school. Like I just know JavaScript. Like I don't know any other languages. And like everyone was super friendly. Like I paired with someone in Python, paired with someone in Golang. And like the way that they set it up is very friendly for all levels. Anyway, yeah, I guess that's the end of this part, unless anyone else had anything they wanted to add.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say you will have a lot of story to share during interviews. Cool. Ready for your next issue? Yes, no? Let me share my screen.
Are we doing those little things that we did from last week where we had to talk about what went well, what didn't? Or is that?
Rituals? Yeah, rituals we're doing that every other week. So
Oh, okay.
we'll do that for next week.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yep. Sounds like you really enjoying it. I did too, so.
Yeah, I like it. I was trying to think of things throughout the week, so now I'll just carry them over till next week.
Yeah, that's why I kept the journal for myself, just like keep some notes for myself. I will forget. Yeah, for sure. Cool. So for this week, Christina and Tila and Esmeri and Satoshi. So for issue 7, so when a user starts a new list, they need a little guidance on how to get started. Think through what you'd want to see as a user and make some intentional user experience decisions that will guide our users in confidently adding their very first item. So it's pretty much like making a better user experience. When you are there, right, you want to see like a welcoming prompt to add your first item if there's, if you're creating a new item there. And the acceptance criteria are a list view when there's no items to display should show a prompt, whichever you want to create it, and for the user to add their first item. And here's the wireframe. Again, it doesn't have to be like exact the same. Make it your own, but it's kind of the meaning across here. Your shopping list currently is empty. And issue 8 takes longer, I would say. I remember this week. One's more meaty, one is less time intensive. So as a user, I want to mark an item on my shopping list as purchased so the app can learn how often I buy different items. Users need a UI that allows them to mark their items as purchased so they can track what on their list they do and do not need to buy. So you will play a lot more with Firebase this week again. The list item component renders a checkbox with a semantic label. Checking up the item in the UI also updates the date last purchased and total purchase function properties on the corresponding Firebase document. And the item is shown as checked for 24 hours after purchase made. And we assume the user does not need to buy the item again for at least 1 day. So after 24 hours, the item unchecks itself so the user can buy it again. The update item function in Firebase.js has been filled out and sends updates to the Firebase database when item is checked or unchecked. And there's some helpful notes here. While you will need to update multiple parts of the Firebase document for this feature, do not worry about date next purchased yet, and that will be addressed in a future issue. You can use the Firebase console to test this feature, whether it's working correctly or not, but by manipulating the value date last purchased. So this one, the testing is really just in the Firebase console. You will see the changes. It might look a little confusing right now. At least I was when I was reading this, but once you dig in a little bit deeper of the code base, I hope that will be like more clear on what you need to do, but we're here to answer any questions. So for this week, I suggest is maybe some of you are really busy this week, then I suggest you take 7 because 8 definitely takes more time.
Well, since it's a holiday, I actually don't have to work tomorrow. So Tila, if you want to tackle the bigger one, I'm okay with, we can tackle that one. But I'm not sure what you have going on this week. Or
I
we can
would
go the other
be,
route. Either way.
yeah, I would be fine taking the bigger one, but I actually can't work on it tomorrow. So it would have to be later in the week, which I don't know if that would be as ideal with you for you, Christina. Sorry.
That's okay. I mean, we can probably still make it work. That's okay. If you want it, we can take it.
That's fine for me. Does anyone else have a strong preference though?
Yeah.
On the other side?
That would be a good one to.
Yeah. Esmeri, Satoshi.
I have an interview this coming up week, so I would like to take the lighter task.
Ooh, nice.
Nice.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm fine with the smaller one.
Nice. Then that's settled.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Best of
thank you.
luck.
Thank you. I'll let you guys know.
Exciting.
Yeah. Best of luck. Where is it?
It's not like with a company necessarily. Off topic, I applied to like an organization called Equitech, which basically helps people break into like data science, and they give you like 8 weeks of like material to learn to become a data scientist, specifically machine learning, AI. So I'm meeting with some other faculty this Friday. And then I'm supposed to hear back, I think, the following week to see if like I get accepted into the program. So we'll see.
Cool.
Nice. Yeah. I feel like everybody's learning more about AI, as we should. Satoshi. And cool. Awesome. Perfect. So for this week, I believe Alejandro will do the office hour, and then I will do the code review.
Speaking about office hours, now that I have more like, I know my schedule, what do you think about Tuesday, 5 p.m. Central Time, I think? It is 11:48. I think that is Central. Okay, sounds good. Okay, Tuesday it is then. I will send you the link in a reminder tomorrow. I know you're off because holidays, but I'll send you 2 messages to remember you. Bring questions about anything. I mean, whatever. We can talk about pets, but I would rather talk about career stuff. But if you want, talk about pets.
Hint, hint, talk about your pets.
Yeah. Yeah, we can talk about anything. Yeah.
Can we just talk about a function that finds the best pet for your family? Just kidding.
Yeah. So Tuesday it is.
Tuesday, 5 p.m. Central Time, you said? Okay.
Yep.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, enjoying the long weekend, and thank you for being here. Really, yeah. Cool.
All right.
Alrighty. See
Thanks.
you
Have a good
in
week.
Slack.
Have a good
Thanks.
one.
Thanks,
Have a
everybody.
good
Bye-bye.
Labor Day.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.